Mark Andrews is the all-time leader in receptions for the Baltimore Ravens with 473 receptions. Welcome to Just the Stats NFL, the show that covers the NFL from a statistical angle. All right, my name's Ernie Jennings, and I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. You got to watch 3 good games. 2 of them were really close. The last game with the Bengals and Ravens wasn't quite as close, but still a good game. It was interesting to watch that one because of Burrow's coming back to see how he would do, and he did pretty well. But we're going to be talking about those games. We're going to talk about some of the top 10s this season. And if we have time, which I don't know that we will in the next 25, 30 minutes, we could talk about some of the top 10, a couple of top 10 team stats. But because we do have 3 games, usually we just have the one Thursday night game to talk about. But with 3, I'll get going, and we'll probably see how far we get, because there are, not in this first game between Green Bay and Detroit, but the rest of them, there's a lot of stats to talk about in those games, especially the last one with the Ravens. So we'll get started, and let's start with the Green Bay Packers versus the Detroit Lions. Now, this was a game, very important game for both teams. And it really hurt the chances of Detroit in this case because they're the ones that lost. The Green Bay Packers went into Detroit and won that game 31-24. Jordan Love had a decent game. He had 4 touchdown passes, so that was good, but his completions versus attempt wasn't that great. 18 completions on 30 attempts. 234 yards, but 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, was not sacked either. So he had a pretty decent game. Now, Goff had a decent game as well. 20 completions on 26 attempts for 256 yards, 2 touchdowns. Was sacked 3 times, though, in that game. Josh Jacobs, 17 carries, 83 yards. He was the main running back for Green Bay. And for Detroit, the rushing game was just so, just about 4 yards if you count everybody, including Goff. Goff had a 24-yard run, not something you generally see. But Gibbs had 20 for 68, so way off of last week when he had a combined yards from scrimmage well over 200 yards and rushed for over 200 as well. But nothing like that today against the Green Bay Packers. Montgomery had 8 carries for 32 yards, and he had the 1 rushing touchdown. Now, as far as receiving, this is one of the things. Christian Watson had a good game, 4 catches, 80 yards, and a touchdown. But if you're in fantasy football, Green Bay receivers are impossible to try to peg. Usually you'll say Romeo Doubs or Christian Watson, and not that Watson didn't have a good game, but it was Datavian Wicks. Wicks had 6 catches for 94 yards and 2 touchdowns. Nobody's going to predict him being the main receiver for Green Bay, but he was. Now for Detroit, wow. St. Brown, 1 target. Now he was injured, it looked like a little bit, but I saw him back on the field. But one target, no catches. That's terrible. But if you had Jamison Williams, 7 catches, 144 yards, and 1 touchdown. So he was the big guy there. Now Gibbs had 18 yards, so on 3 catches. So you combine the 18 with the 68, you've got 86 yards. Still, just kind of average for him. But quite a game for Green Bay. They are now 8-3-1, and Detroit Lions dropped to 7-5. And this was a divisional game too, so really does help Green Bay move forward. Now, Chicago loses, Green Bay's in first place, so we'll see what happens when Chicago plays. Now, in this game, we did have one top 10 stat for Green Bay, and that was Jordan Love. He needed 168 156 yards passing to move up in the top 10 all time in passing yards for Green Bay. Well, in the game, he was able to get 234. So he now has 10,948 yards passing. He was in seventh. He's now moved into sixth. He passed Don Majkowski, who played from the late 80s, early 70s. So he has now moved into sixth place all by himself. Next up, Tobin Rote in fifth place. He played in the 50s. He's got 11,535. So about, almost 600 yards there. That's two really good games, and probably more like into the third game, 3 more games before he catches him. And after that, that's it. I mean, there's a jump of 10,000 yards from fourth place to fifth place. So, but a good game for Jordan Love, and Green Bay moves on. They needed that victory, and actually Detroit needed their victory as well. So that's why it was so important. These games on Thursday were all so key games as far as teams moving forward. And now Detroit, obviously 7-5. If they go on a winning streak, they could still make the playoffs. But right now they are not in the playoffs, even as a wild card. So we'll see what happens to them. But they really need to figure out their defense. And I don't know. The running game is so important to them, and they did try to run it. They ran it 30 times, and yet they just could not catch up to Green Bay. Green Bay was up at 17-14 at halftime, and so it was close, but Green Bay kept pressuring, and scored 14 more points in the third quarter, only 7 for Detroit. And then in the fourth quarter, Detroit couldn't do nothing more than a field goal to get within a touchdown, but that was it. They couldn't stop Green Bay, just couldn't do it. All right, we will now move on to our next game. This was another really big game between hang on one second here. I don't know why I got that there. But the Dallas Cowboys and the Kansas City Chiefs. Wow, was this game important for both teams? I mean, they're both borderline. Kansas City came into the game 6-5. Dallas Cowboys were 5-1. So their records were very similar. Kansas City was just a game up over 500. So they both really needed this win. Neither team's in the playoffs right now. And now for Kansas City, they lost this game 31-28. I don't know how many people predicted that, but yeah, they lost this game 31-28. So the Kansas City Chiefs are in dire straits. They don't have any really of the tiebreaker things going their way either. They're basically going to have to win out and hope they can make it. I mean, the best they're going to do is 11 and 6. And I don't know that would necessarily be even good enough to make it in the playoffs. We'll see. Now for Dallas, 6-5-1, their hopes are still there, and we'll see how the Eagles do. They're going to need a little help as well, and they're going to have to keep winning to have a chance. But they kept their hopes alive, and Kansas City saw their hopes dim some in this game. Now in this game, Patrick Mahomes, 23 for 34, 261 yards and 4 touchdowns. So he had a really good game, sacked 3 times. On the other hand, Dak Prescott, 27 for 39, 320 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he did have 1 interception, but he was not sacked. Rushing, nobody really was that dominant, but Patrick Mahomes had 3 carries for 30 yards, which kept some drives alive, which is what he's had to do all season long. Now for Kansas City, Rashee Rice was the guy. 8 catches, 92 yards, 2 touchdowns. Travis Kelce got another touchdown, which he needed to move up in a category of total points for Kansas City, which we'll mention in a minute. Hollywood Brown, only 2 catches for 20 yards, but one was an amazing touchdown. Tiptoed, jumped high at the end of the end zone, and came down just tiptoeing his toes in bounds and got that touchdown. So it was a big one for him. Now for Dallas, today it was CeeDee Lamb, 7 catches, 112 yards, and 1 touchdown. Last week it was Pickens. This week it's Lamb. But Pickens also had a good game, 6 catches, 88 yards. So between them, they had 200 yards. So very impressive, those 2 guys. And then Ferguson, obviously, another one who's been quite good as a tight end, 5 catches, 36 yards. Now, Javonte Williams, 3 catches, 21 yards, and a touchdown to go along with 59 yards rushing. So he had 80 yards, 70 yards of 80 yards of total offense and 1 touchdown. Not too bad. Now, in this game, looking at Dallas Cowboys, CeeDee Lamb needed 1 touchdown reception to move into a tie with Billy Joe Dupree, who played in the 70s and 80s, for 8th place. So CeeDee Lamb came into the game with 40, got 1. He now has 41 receiving touchdowns to tie Billy Joe Dupree for 8th place for the Dallas Cowboys. Now, next up for him is Drew Pearson, who had 48. So that's going to be questionable whether CeeDee Lamb is going to be able to get to 48 in the next several games that they play. But that is the next goal for him. If he doesn't get it this year, he's got a chance to catch several people next year. Now, also in this game, Travis Kelce, he only needed 1 point, which obviously he's not going to get exactly 1 point. But he needed 1 point to pass or to tie Ryan Suckup. He got 6 points. He got the a touchdown reception. So he had 516 points. He's now got 522 points he scored for Kansas City Chiefs, which puts him into 4th place all time for Kansas City, past Ryan Suckup, who was a kicker from 2009 to 2013, who had 517 points. So Travis Kelce now in 4th place all time for the Kansas City Chiefs in scoring. Now that's as far as he'll ever get. He needs to double that total to catch Harrison Butker. The top 3 are all kickers, and obviously he's not going to do that because his career is definitely winding down. Whether this is the last year or not, I don't know, but he'll never move beyond 4th place. But still, quite a impressive career for Travis Kelce. All right, let's move on to our next game, our 3rd game here. And that is the Cincinnati Bengals and the Baltimore Ravens. Another game where the team away was able to pull off the victory. So 2 out of 3, the home team did not win. Now in this game, Cincinnati ended up winning this game 32-14. And part of this was because Baltimore turned the ball over 4 times. They really were very loose with the football. You can't do that and expect to win unless you're the Jaguars, who had 4 turnovers by Lawrence and still somehow won that game. But Lamar Jackson had 1 interception, and they also had 4 fumbles. So 5 total turnovers in this game to 1 turnover for Cincinnati. And your total ended up being 32 Cincinnati, 14 Baltimore. This, again, was a game that was super important for Cincinnati if they have any chance, any hope. And they're in a division where they do have some chances. I mean, the best chance they have is actually to win their division. By beating Baltimore now, Cincinnati's 4-8. Baltimore drops to 6-6. And right now, the Pittsburgh Steelers are 6-5. If they lose, Cincinnati is 2 games off of 1st place. So they do still have a chance. And their only chance is really to win the division. And same with Baltimore. I think in this division between Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and Cincinnati, only one team's going to the playoffs, and that's going to be the division winner. I don't see any of them being a wild card team. I mean, the best team still has 5 losses already, and that's Pittsburgh, and they play the Colts. They could lose as well, and they'd be at 6-6, along with Baltimore Ravens. So we'll see what happens going into that game. But in this game, Joe Burrow, not bad. A lot of passes, 46 attempts, only 24 completions, so just over 50%. But this was his first game back. 261 yards, 2 touchdowns, but he did not have an interception, and he was only sacked once. So, pretty good game for somebody coming back from a long absence. Now, Chase Brown, 15 carries, 78 yards to lead the running game for the team. And then, obviously, it was going to be Jamar Chase and Chase Brown, by the way. But Jamar Chase led the team with 7 catches, 110 yards. Now, Chase Brown had 7 catches for 35 yards. So as far as offense goes, he had 113 yards himself, while Jamar Chase had 110. So those two players definitely led the team. I mean, nobody else, they both had 7 catches. No one else had more than 2 in that game. Now, for Baltimore, Lamar Chase, I don't know. He looked a little bit better running today. But 17 for 32, so really just over 50% a little bit, 246 yards and an interception, sacked 3 times in this game. Derrick Henry, why? I guess because they were behind a little bit, but never too far behind. At halftime, Cincinnati's winning 12-7, but in the third quarter, they do score 14 points. But in this game, why is Derrick Henry ending the game with only 10 carries for 60 yards and a touchdown? I don't know. He's pound him, let him get it 20 times. And they had the opportunity up through the first half and into the third quarter, and they just didn't do it. Lamar Jackson had 6 carries for 27 yards himself. As far as receivers go, Isaiah Likely had 5 catches for 95 yards. And if you saw it, he had 1 catch. This might have been a big game changer, too, in the game. Caught a pass and jumped over somebody, but as he was going into the end zone with the ball, it knocked loose out of his hands and bounded out of the end zone. Touchback, Cincinnati's ball. So a touchdown taken away. They gave him the touchdown initially and took it away. Now, that was a huge play in that game. Who knows what happens if he, stays in and gets the touchdown. But, yeah, he would have even had a better game than 5 for 95. Mark Andrews, 4 for 47. That's a look at some of your numbers in this game. Now, in this game, Cincinnati really didn't have any top 10s, but Baltimore Ravens definitely did. To start with, Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. Actually, more Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry only needed 10 yards rushing to move up into 5th place all time for the Baltimore Ravens rushing, and he got 60. He passed Willis McGahee, who played from 2007 to 2010, and now Derrick Henry, with those 60 yards, has 2,852 to move into 5th place all time. And that puts him now almost, over 500 yards behind Gus Edwards, who's in 4th. I don't know if he'll catch him or not. Lamar Chase had 27 yards, but he's a long way from catching Jamal Lewis. Lamar Chase is second all time in rushing for the Baltimore Ravens. Only guy left for him to catch is Jamal Lewis, but Lewis has almost a 1,400-yard lead on him, so I don't know if he'll ever catch him. But he is second. Derrick Henry is now 5th. Good game for Derrick Henry. I just think they should have ran him a lot more than they did. They had the opportunity, and I'm not sure why they didn't. Too many passing attempts by Lamar Jackson. Had him running around. And Cincinnati, doesn't have a great defense, but they held Baltimore to only 14 points. And part of that, I guess, is the turnovers. Now, Andrews, he just needed 2 receptions to tie for the all-time lead in receptions for the Baltimore Ravens. He had 4 receptions, so he now has 473. So he passed Derek Mason, who had 471, who was the all-time leader. He was with the Ravens from 2005 to 2010. He was the all-time leader. Now Mark Andrews is the all-time leader in receptions for the Baltimore Ravens with 473 receptions. Zay Flowers also had a couple, but not for many yards. He's in 8th place right now. All right. Now, one other player I wanted to talk about. It's not a top 10, which is normally what I want to talk about, but it is DeAndre Hopkins. He had 2 catches in this game. He only needed 1 to reach the 1,000 reception level. Coming into this season, there were only 15 players in the history of the NFL to have 1,000 or more receptions. Well, this season, you have 3 players now breaking into that category. Travis Kelce did it last year to be as part of this whole gang of 4 players currently playing, but he did it last year. But this year, Keenan Allen was the first one to do it. He did it much earlier in the season. He's got 1,030 receptions. Then Davante Adams did it not too long ago, I think just last week or the week before, actually. He's got 1,005 receptions, and now DeAndre Hopkins has 1,001 receptions. Now, this is amazing, honestly, to have 4 players currently playing who all have managed to make it into the 1,000 reception club, I guess you could say. Travis Kelce leads this group with 1,058. And what's also interesting is 3 of these players, Hopkins, Allen, and Kelce, all started their career in 2013. You got to say that's probably one of the better receiving groups of people in the history of the NFL, to have 3 players in the top 18, I guess it is now. What's also interesting is Hopkins did this with the Baltimore Ravens. Stephen Smith also did it with the Baltimore Ravens. He played a couple years with them, had 100 and something receptions for the Baltimore Ravens, which put him up over 1,000 receptions in his career. Now, the only one, Davante Adams, has a chance to pass all of these current players because he started his career in 2014, a year later than the other 3. So there's a chance, depending on if Travis Kelce was to retire. I think if he retires after this season, Davante Adams has a chance to pass every one of them. Now, Travis Kelce is the only one right now that's close. He needs 12 receptions, not even that many now, to catch Reggie Wayne to finally move into the top 10. Now, what's also amazing about this fact is that you have 4 players currently playing now moving toward the top 10 and with 1,000, at least with 1,000 receptions. The next one that has any remote chance, there's a few players but that are 100 or so away, but they're never going to make it. They're at the end of their career. But the next one up really that's going to be somebody that pushes this kind of a category is Justin Jefferson. But he's got somewhat over 500. He's only halfway there. So to have 4 players currently playing in the top 18 with 1,000 or more receptions, now we're going to wait years before, probably at least 4 years before we see another one, maybe 5. Just interesting how that has happened. In fact, we went 5 years or 4 years. Larry Fitzgerald, he's second all time. He ended his career in 2020. Obviously, he broke the 1,000 reception thing a couple of years before that, probably 3. So it's been since probably 2017 since anybody's broken into this group of 1,000 reception club. So good for them. Really good for them. All right, spent enough time on that, but I'm impressed by these receivers that have been able to have 1,000 receptions in their career. Now, moving on to a couple of the top 10 categories. The season leader in receptions right now is Christian McCaffrey with 81 receptions. I'm talking now about running backs. He also leads the NFL in receiving receptions as a whole, but as far as running backs, he's also the leader with 81. Devon Achane for the Dolphins has 54. So he's got a 27 reception lead over these people. Bijan Robinson for the Falcons has 49. And those are your top three. Now, Jamar Gibbs made a big jump up to fourth. He had 11 receptions last week to jump up to with 48 now. But Christian McCaffrey's on his way to NFL status here in a couple weeks at the pace he's going. He only needs, I think, 10 more to move into the top 10 all time in the NFL for receptions by running backs. And the same goes as far as receiving goes. Right now, Christian McCaffrey receiving yards by running backs, that's 785. Bijan Robinson second with 543. So again, another 242-yard lead over the second best player in this category. Jamar Gibbs, like I said, with that big 11 receptions, jumped up to, he's third now with 376. Saquon Barkley, finally showing some sign of life, moved into the top 10 category for the Eagles with 259 receiving yards. And that's what's amazing is that, I mean, the amount of yards McCaffrey has compared to the rest of the league is crazy. Kenneth Gainwell for the Steelers jumped into the top 10 as well. He's at number 10 with 234 yards. What's interesting about that is he knocked Jaylen Warren, his teammate, out of the top 10 by him getting into the top 10. So they've got two running backs with over 200 yards receiving. Now, you combine all that, what Christian McCaffrey has done, and now we're looking at yards from scrimmage. Christian McCaffrey leads the NFL by a healthy over 100 yards right now. He's got 1,581 yards in yards from scrimmage. This is the first, after this last game, he finally has more rushing yards than he has receiving yards, but it's amazingly close. 796 rushing yards, 785 receiving yards. He had a 100-yard game, which he hasn't had too many of those rushing. But he leads the NFL. Jonathan Taylor, who now has 1,465, he had been leading, but he fell behind with a bye week and then not a really good week. He is second. Now, Jackson Smith-Njigba's fourth. He's the number one receiver as far as this goes, and all his yards except for 37 are by receptions. He was the only receiver in the top 10 until George Pickens, now who has 1,054, is 10th. And all his yards are receiving. No rushing yards for him. But Christian McCaffrey is really one of my MVP candidates, but he's going to have to super shine, I think, at this point so far to beat Stafford. Smith-Njigba also has a chance, those two players. Those are my top three players right now. All right, one more category, and we'll call it a day, and that is sacks. Myles Garrett is on a rampage. Myles Garrett for the Browns has 18 sacks so far this season. Next best, Brian Burns for the Giants has 13, 5-sack lead. I mean, that's big. 18 sacks. He's averaging basically a sack and a half a game. Daniel Hunter for the Texans has 11, and Will Anderson, his partner for the Texans, also has 10 and a half. So between the two of them, they have 21 and a half. That's also impressive to see. Two players on the same team, and they're ranked third and fourth. So no other team has two players in the top 10. And amazingly, you would think that the Broncos would, because they lead the NFL with, I believe, 49 sacks as a team, but only Nick Bonito, who has 9.5, is in this list. So they must have several players somewhere really close to making the top 10, but as of now, they don't have one. All right, that is a run through some of the stats, some big games. I'm going to be interested to see the rest of the games this week as far as how the potential they have to really change the layout of playoff contention teams. Who's in the playoffs, who's a wild card team, and who's still in the running. It's going to change quite a bit. Now, this afternoon, we're fortunate to have another game, the Chicago Bears at the Eagles. This is another big game. These two teams, it's such an important game for Chicago to maintain their first place status. If they lose, they drop to second, and Green Bay is first. The Eagles have the chance. They dominate their division, but they lose this game. They're just opening the door for the Dallas Cowboys to sneak in there. If they lose, Dallas Cowboys pull within a game and a half. So it's really important for the Eagles to win as well. We'll see how that game goes, but that game is this afternoon. So I look forward to seeing that. All right. Appreciate you listening. Hope you enjoyed all the games that were on yesterday. Please like and subscribe. You can do that at YouTube at Just the Stats NFL. That's where you can watch it, see the top 10 charts that I've created on whatever topic I was talking about today. And you can see those things there if you watch the video. If you're listening, obviously you can't, but appreciate you listening as well. And please comment and like and subscribe on whatever source you use to listen or watch this podcast. Appreciate that. Again, thanks for listening. And that is a wrap for NFL Top 10s for Friday. So I'm out. Have a good weekend. Enjoy the games.